good evening or good afternoon, depending on what side of the pond you're on, and welcome to an extra special edition of Across the Pitch. My name is Phil Kennedy, and I have my co-host Tony Robinson today, and we have a very special guest joining us today from Central Scotland. Keith Laird is the, if you've been on the Accrington Stanley Supporters of Central Scotland page, you've probably seen Keith on there before, and one of the preeminent Stanley fans from outside of the Lancashire area, and we are very excited to have him on the show today to talk some Stanley. Welcome to Across the Pitch, and thank you for joining us, Keith. How are you today?
I'm fine, thanks. I'm quite kind of privileged actually to be asked to come on here. So it's all good. All good.
Yeah. Well, we're happy to have you on, Keith. It's we've seen your name kick around and seen you on the Zoom meetings for the supporters club. So we thought it'd be a terrific way to get to talk to you, meet you a little better, get you on the show, and because we always like to find out the story about somebody's journey from why they chose Accrington Stanley. Before we get into the questions there, I just want to, and this is a sort of a momentous show in the sense that we want to recognize that we've actually on our podcast have actually hit over 40,000 downloads. And so you're in the beginning of the next 10,000, Keith. So no pressure on your end.
You just put loads of pressure on me now.
Well, I also want to thank Tony, who's personally listened to 39,000 of them.
I don't listen to ones I'm on, so that cuts it back a bit. But just jump into back into Stanley, Keith. I mean, I was born in Accrington. I haven't lived there for many years, of course. But I mean, for me to take a trip back, it's a little bit arduous, and I've got to jump on a plane and that sort of thing. But you're in, I believe it's Carluke, Scotland, right?
Yeah.
How did you come to get to pick Stanley?
Wow, it's a really long story, really. I grew up supporting Glasgow Rangers, which is maybe 30 miles from Carluke. That was my team when I was young and growing up. I was a season ticket holder at Glasgow Rangers for maybe 10, 15 years. And I kind of got disillusioned with the big team playing in Scotland. They're like absolutely massive compared to all the rest of the clubs. And going to games, you just know that you're going to win all the time. And it's just how many goals you're going to win by. And it does get a bit tedious after a while. And I kind of fell out in love with football for maybe 5, 6 years. Then Max, my son, came along. And as he was growing up, all kids like football, don't they? Yeah. So he was into football and he wanted to go to games. And Scottish football, the quality isn't really there. And when you watch football on the telly, it's always the English Premiership that you see. So I decided to take Max to a football game, but instead of going to one in Scotland, we'd go away for a day. So it was like the English Premiership, and you can actually it's only a couple of hours away from where we stay in central Scotland, and you can actually get to watch Premiership games live. So we did that, and we went to a few clubs, basically round about the north of England. Right. Where we saw all the best teams, like your London teams. You can actually get to see them playing away from home. Places like Blackburn, Everton, Liverpool, you can get tickets for these games.
Yeah.
So we were watching these games, but again, it's the big club sort of mentality. You're in this big, huge stadium, but it's actually it's like a ghost town where there isn't really much atmosphere in these stadiums. So basically, we tried to maybe go down a bit, and we sort of stumbled across Accrington Stanley. It was basically looking at league tables, and the name Accrington Stanley stands out for some bizarre reason. And once we actually found it, I didn't even know where Accrington was at that time. And we found out it's like 190 miles, and it really isn't that far. It's like 3 hours. So we went to a game and absolutely loved it. You feel part of something in Accrington. You're made so welcome.
You made a couple of really, really great points there. And one thing that you said there is something about the name Accrington Stanley. It just sticks with you. And I feel the exact same way. I remember, and I've told this story more times than is necessary, so I'm not going to get into it again. But I just remember the first time I ever heard about Accrington Stanley was actually on another football podcast I was listening to. And I just heard the name and something with it just stuck with me. And that day I went home and started just reading anything I could find out about Accrington and Accrington Stanley. And once you catch that bug, it's just with you.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I think maybe the name is just totally different. Usually most clubs it's United or City, but Stanley it stands out, and that's basically where we got it from.
Yeah, it's not I don't think there's many clubs that get a name from just the name of a street where most of the players were living at the time when they come up with the name. But the one thing one word you mentioned that I think really resonated with me, Keith, was atmosphere. And I've been to Premier League matches much like yourself. In fact, when I was 12, 13 years old, I had season tickets to Burnley back in the day. But when you go to watch a Premier League match, and I've seen Burnley in the Premier League, it's almost, I don't want to say clinical, but it's not. It just feels like you're in a hospital where it's sanitized, if I'm trying to get my point across, whereas at Stanley, there's atmosphere. You can smell, touch, and feel the players basically, and I think that has a lot to do with why it's a good club to support. Plus, as you mentioned before, the underdog factor is always a key as well.
Yeah, I mean, the first time we went to a game, we turned up at the ticket office, and the lady in the ticket office said, "Ticket," and I'm like, "Well, this is the first time we're here. Point us in the right direction." And she says, "Well, I can give you a seat in the main stand, or if you go behind the goals, there'll be standing and you'll be guaranteed an atmosphere. There'll be loads of singing and the drum and everything." And you're like, "Yeah, I'll go for that, because that sounds more exciting than just sitting there and like you say, it's as if you're in a cinema or something and watching a Premiership game. It's at least at Accrington, you're close to the action, you're standing. It's the way it used to be at football, and that's probably lost to a lot of people that just go to the big clubs.
The stadium itself and the way that the stadium is designed has a lot to do with the atmosphere too, where it just puts the fans so close to the action. And the one thing you mentioned, the drums, and watching over here on iFollow, one way that I always know that I'm watching Accrington Stanley is if I can hear the drums pinging off the signs that are around the touchline, and it just, that tells you how close everything is and what an intimate atmosphere it is at these matches.
Yeah, there was a time, there was a few seasons ago. I think it was it must have been the first season we had in League One, and we just secured League One status for the next season. And there was just a lot of banter going on behind the goals where we stand. And it was Billy Key looked up, and he must have heard whoever was said something. And Billy Key just burst out laughing. It was absolutely brilliant. And that is how close you are to the action. And the players must feed off it as well.
Yeah, well, I've seen the odd opposing player say something back to somebody in the stands because they've obviously not liked the comment that the fan has made. But that's an example, like you say, how close you are, and it gives to the atmosphere. And sometimes, and I've sat in front of where Andy Holt is, and the interesting part about that is you're close to the other team's managers, and you can hear a lot of the the language, and sometimes it's not always the best of language, and they get some kickback from the fans. But again, it's all to do with it's an intimate setting, and part of the overall enjoyment. So I take it your son Max now is also a Stanley supporter.
He is, yes. Two of us are Stanley daft.
And is he the brains behind your? And this is one thing that Darren wanted me to mention, because he thinks this is terrific. Is the Accrington Stanley Monopoly game? Was that Max's invention?
That was. I would like to take the credit, but no, that was Max. That was all his doing. He did a lot of research. I don't know if you've seen a lot of close-up pictures. All the players, or most of the players, are all sort of older, and it's like before the time that we were actually Stanley fans. So we do know about the club, not just the last 5 years. Further afield from that, if you like. There's a great website. It's The Club That Wouldn't Die, and that's where a lot of our information comes from.
Well, that's a brilliant website. It really is, and that was one of the first websites that I found when I started researching. And if you want to get stats just going all the way back for as long as Stanley's been playing, then that's the place.
It's a regular website that we always visit when we're talking about Stanley, and if there's a player that's played for Stanley, he's mentioned on that website. It's absolutely brilliant.
One of the things before I forget, I did write down here, because when I was talking to Darren and just getting some background, he's doing a book, as we know, and one of his chapters is sort of around the worldwide Reds supporters, and I think he's got a mention of you and your son in the upcoming book. So just to keep an eye out for that you're part of the group of supporters around the world that gets an honourable mention. So I thought I'd mention that to you.
No, that's absolutely brilliant. We're on a journey, really, supporting Accrington, and it humbles me to think that people have got these feelings for us. It's amazing.
Well, and there's a Scottish connection going back, obviously, to Walter Galbraith's time, when he brought in a lot of players and a lot of people settled in the area. And I remember when I was growing up, some of the names, Joe Devlin for one, and I think he ended up being a vacuum repairman or one of the players anyway got into that business. And I remember him coming to the house, after in the off season and fixing my mom's Hoover. So, this is, and there were a lot of, as I say, he brought a lot of players down in the 50s. And I can't remember the exact year, if it was 54 or 55, when he fielded a full 11 players from Scotland, which is the first time it had ever taken place.
Yeah. Joe Devlin was actually born 5 miles down the road from where I stay. I think he was the guy that fixed the vacuum cleaners, but he was born 5 miles away from me.
Oh, is that right? Yeah. And he settled in the area, because I know, I'm not sure if one of his kids was in the same school as me, but I know the name. But it's now, when with that Scottish connection, is there any thought that could you ever see Stanley playing a pre-season game in Scotland, and if so, where would you like to see it take place?
They have played in Scotland a couple of times. For me, probably the biggest club closest to me is Motherwell, who play in the SPL. So that would be a good. There's actually Stanley connections with Motherwell as well. Aaron Chapman, our goalkeeper from a few years ago, he plays at Motherwell. Jed Brannan on the coaching staff, he was a player with Motherwell as well. So there's loads of links round about this area to Accrington Stanley. If you go looking for them, you'll find them. Yeah,
I think and John Doolan's coached up in Scotland at I don't know if it was Hibbs. He was there, but he was up coaching there, and we've had a couple of players that we've recently done. Phil, you can remember the names. Both actually had little spells at Ross County.
I think it was. I know it was Nathan Baxter was one of them, and was it Morgan?
Yeah, it could have been David Morgan. Yeah, but I know that there's a few more than you think that have had connections. But I think it's something that would be. I think a team of Stanley's caliber would. It'd be nice to see how they would compete against a team like Motherwell. You think they could hold their own, Keith?
I think they could. Motherwell's it's roughly the same size as Accrington, population wise. But the players the standard of players, I mean, I think Accrington would do fine up here. I think they could play at maybe bottom SPL level, but they'd certainly be up there. Certainly.
Yeah. And you mentioned you said you were only about just over 3-hour drive. I mean, for 3-hour drive in Canada is nothing. We go and visit mates to have a drink for on a 3-hour drive. I mean, it's nothing.
It's 2.5 hours just to Tim Hortons, isn't it?
No, we're not that bad, Phil. But I'm curious as to how your day. I mean, what time do you have to get away early, or like what's your typical day when you're going to a Stanley match?
My typical day is I get up first and walk the dog, because Max is lazy and doesn't walk the dog. So I'll walk the dog. I'll come in, get him up out his bed. That's usually around maybe 10, 10:30. So we aim to leave like 11 o'clock latest. And then it's just a straight drive down. So it's like 3 hours. And we get to Accrington around 2 o'clock. And then it's into the ground, say hellos to the usual people. And then that's us ready to go and enjoy the next 2 hours, really.
And it's not really a hardship, really, getting out of the ground, getting back to the motorway, is it, for you?
No, it's basically motorway all the way, really. It's from Carluke to the motorway is 20 minutes, and then your motorway basically all the way to Accrington. You're 5 minutes off the M65, and then you're at the ground.
I don't suppose you make too many Tuesday night matches, or would you?
We do now. At first we weren't going to midweek matches, but I can get away from work early and I pick Max up at school. I do the school run that day. It's probably the only day I'll do the school run. And then we just disappear to Accrington. And then we get home at, I don't know, 1 o'clock in the morning. But that's it. It's really not that bad.
Yeah, I mean, when you're, especially, and like Phil, this is something when Keith mentioned, Phil, the motorway most of the way, that's not always a common thing. And like we have our friend David Davis, who comes from Nottingham. It's probably there's no direct route for him to travel. Probably might be easier drive for you coming from Scotland than it is from him from Nottingham.
Yeah, it will be because, like I say, it's motorway all the way, so it's really easy, and it's a bit of the country that isn't really highly populated, so you don't get traffic jams or anything. They're very rarely we'll hit a traffic jam, so it's easy.
Yeah,
I'm just looking at my my map here, and I see where Motherwell's at, and all the way I'll see you pass like Queen of the South and Carlisle United, and that'll be about it until you get to Lancashire. Yeah,
that's basically it. Yeah, I mean, once you get into Lancashire, there is actually quite a lot of clubs. But like you say, we'll only really pass close to Carlisle. That's probably the closest one.
Yeah, and I think there's only, you may correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's only one team that's situated in England that plays in the Scottish system, and that's Berwick, is it?
That's the one, yep.
Yeah, and I think
that's a new trivia I didn't know. That's a great trivia question, Teddy. You could definitely win some points at the pub with that one.
Well, I don't think you'd win too many in England, because I think that's a sort of a Well, I mean, it's just something I remember being told, and because it's just they're situated, I think, just right at the northeast tip of England, and I think really almost on the border. Are they, Keith?
Yeah, it's definitely it's right on the border. I've actually been to their ground like years and years ago, which it was just concrete standing. It's actually quite a good wee ground.
So one thing I wanted to ask you about real quick, and I mentioned this a little bit in the opener, is one of the first places that I heard about you was your Facebook group, Central Scotland Accrington Stanley Supporters Club, which I'm a member of, and I know Tony is as well. Yep. What prompted you to start the Facebook group?
It was basically I started it just to see if there was anybody or any interest really from other people round about this area that would like to go to games, and we could share the transport. It was basically just to get other people involved really, to come and sample Accrington Stanley and how good it is basically.
Well, what we want to do next is, I think, everybody's favorite part of the show. It's something where, a few years ago, Tony said, hey, I've got a couple of questions, and it's really morphed into something that has become world famous now. So, Tony, I'll just turn the mic over to you for the world famous rapid fire.
Okay, this is the Scottish edition, so hopefully it's better than the other ones. We'll start off with the true and tested. Much of your garden peas?
It's got to be garden peas, I think.
I think Muchie's, it's sort of I don't know, it's in Lancashire, they just throw muchie peas at you once you start to. I think you give it to you instead of pablum, they give you muchie peas. Red or brown sauce on your bacon sandwich?
It's definitely brown. Definitely brown.
Would you rather have black pudding or haggis?
Oh no, that's a hard one. I'm going to go with black pudding, but just.
Okay, so that's almost a tie.
It is.
Okay, which is your favorite brand? Simple Minds or Oasis?
It's definitely Oasis. Definitely Oasis.
Okay, I don't know too many other songs than their big hit for Simple Minds, but I do remember it. It is a classic from back in the day. Okay, is there a stadium? One of all the stadiums that you've been to on your travels, which one is your favorite, other than the Wham? We'll say.
That's what I was just going to say there as well. I'm not too sure. That's a difficult question.
Well, if the Wham is that far and away better than any other stadium you've been to, I think that's an answer in itself.
Quite liked Wimbledon, actually. Obviously, they've got their new stadium now, but I went to the game at the start of last season. It was just a tidy wee ground. It was much the same as the Wham, really, where you're close to the action.
Yeah.
I'll go with Wimbledon. I don't even know the name of it.
I think the smaller the stadium, we said it before at the beginning. It ties into the atmosphere and the experience. What's your? I've seen this on your Facebook, but I don't know if you still participate. Do you have a hobby outside of football?
My main hobby is cycling. I ride the bike and I ride it for miles.
That's what I was hoping you would say, because that's what I saw that and you've probably got lots of nice runs to do around where you are then.
Yeah,
I know Dave Burgess is big into cycling. So who would win a race between you and Dave Burgess on the bicycle?
I used to race myself, so I'm thinking I would win.
There you go.
All right.
Have you seen Still Sunderland Till I Die or The Last Dance?
Sunderland Till I Die.
What did you think of it?
It just kind of typifies the big clubs and how they just waste so much money, and they think that they're hard done by being where they are, when if they actually look in the mirror, they should take a look at themselves. And the reason they're where they are is because they've messed up in so many ways. So they kind of deserve to be in League One.
I think that's an excellent answer, Phil, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that really kind of sums up the story. I mean, when you see something like, more money to a player that's not even playing than Stanley spends on their whole squad, that kind of sums it up.
And the last one for me, Phil, is I'd like to know what Keith's favorite takeaway is.
Chinese.
There you go.
A good beef curry.
You can't beat a good Chinese.
And I think that's our most popular answer is Chinese.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's up there more so than pizza.
I think if we had more U.S. guests, then we would probably have more pizza. I guess that one of the biggest things I've learned since we started doing this show is just how popular Chinese food is in the U.K.
Oh, one last question. I'm going to throw a date out to Keith, and I'm going to see if he recognizes the significance of this date. 23rd of September, 1918.
23rd of September, 1918.
Oh, sorry, 2018. Sorry, not 1918.
2018.
Yes. Good grief. 2018.
Oh, I'm not sure.
It's when you
I'm going to kick myself, haven't I?
Yeah, you are, because it's the date you started the Facebook group for Central Scotland. Yeah. There you go.
I would have never have got that. And I probably should have.
Well, I thought you might, but anyway, I thought I'd throw that on.
That's interesting, because that's about 25 days after I started the Across the Pitch page. So, that was a big time for Accrington Stanley Facebook groups. That was a big month.
I got one more. I want to. Do you have a favorite Scotch?
No, I don't. I don't even drink the stuff.
Oh, okay.
No, I know.
I think I make up for you, Keith. So don't worry about it.
I think the Johnny Walker man. Blue Label is what you're into, right, Tony?
Oh, I can't afford that. No, I ding the single malt. Sorry, Keith, we cut you off there. You were what do you like to participate in?
No, it's definitely lager for me. I think when I was younger, my dad offered me a drink of whiskey, and I think that put me off for life. So I've not touched it since.
Well, I've only sort of developed a taste for it since the last 10 years since I retired. So, and I think probably, I don't know why, but I seem to be able to afford the odd bottle here and there. But I don't mind a wee dram after a Stanley win. But I have to. I mean, if they play at 10 o'clock, it's 10 o'clock when I see the match. So I have to wait till after noon before I can. I have rules, I can't be drinking at 10 o'clock in the morning. So. Can we just move on to? I wanted to get Keith's take on the season so far at Stanley. What's your? How do you feel how the season has gone, and what's your thoughts on it?
It's went absolutely brilliant, really. It's a shame that we can't go to games, but at the start of the season, I don't really have any expectations of finishing in any real position. If we can avoid relegation, that's good enough for me, really. So to be where we've been, basically we've been top half of the season, top half of the table all season, and that's just beyond my wildest dreams. Where we end up, I don't really know, but this season is way past my expectations, really.
Well, I think, and I don't know if you agree or not, but obviously the injuries I think have played an impact, but they seem to be coming around. And looking at the fixture list for April, there's some winnable matches in there, isn't there, Keith?
There's definitely winnable games, although we can go into games and we can actually win every game against anybody. I mean, there's games that you think that we really shouldn't win, and that's sometimes the ones that we do win.
Exactly.
I think the better the opposition, the better we play for some bizarre reason. But yeah, I wouldn't fear anybody.
Yeah, I think on the counterattack is definitely where Stanley has been at their strongest. And I really think that like you said, I mean, any season that we go into, what we're looking at is wanting to stay in League One first and foremost, and anything else beyond that is really the gravy on the black pudding, if you will.
Phil, you don't put gravy on black pudding.
well, I'm showing off my Americanness here, but what I'm really getting at is that. Like Keith said, I mean, everything has just been beyond expectations, and where we're sitting at right now, after 4 points in the last 2 matches, we're only 3 points off of 7th. Got some winnable matches. The injuries have played a part, but this team has some depth, and in past years, if you'd had a Yosser go down, for instance, that would really leave the club in a bad spot. But I'm really impressed by guys like Joseph McGuire and Ben Barkley last week. I mean, they really seem to settle in, and that's why John Coleman is a football genius. It's whoever you give him out there, he'll get the most out of him, and whether it means changing the formation or changing the tactics, he can get the most out of whatever squad he has, and that's why we're seeing the turnaround over the past couple of games, I think.
Yeah, for sure. After the Peterborough defeat, you just knew that John Coleman was going to get his magic wand out and produce some kind of magic, and that's what he's done to pick up the 4 points that we've got in the last 2 games. When we were beaten 7-0. 3 games ago, and it's the way he turns it around. It's obviously pretty good man management to get the best out of these players.
Well, you said about entitlement, and I think most people who support Stanley, like we said, is we want to get into League One, and we want to stay in League One, and if John Coleman can, weave his magic and get into the playoffs, and we have a chance to go up, then so be it. But we don't feel we're entitled to be in the championship. And I think that is one of the defining factors of following Stanley, is that you're, you want to see the club do well, but you can appreciate where you're at, and not sort of say, well, we've got to do this or we've got to go up like Sunderland.
Yeah, I mean, win, lose or draw, it doesn't really bother me, because it's more about the whole club. It's no, okay, you want to win a football game, of course you do. But when we lose, it's not the end of the world. We don't call for the manager to be sacked. We don't call for the players never to play again. It's just not that kind of club. And it's just about football and enjoying the football.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because when I go back in September, October, and I try to get in about 5 or 6 matches, and sometimes if the first match is back and we lose, and people are saying, oh, this, that, and we should have won. I said, you know what? I said, for me, just sitting live in the stands after traveling across from Canada, it's the experience that I enjoy. The result is secondary. I mean, it's great if they win, but if they lose, I'm not upset, because I've just had 2 hours of football after flying overnight from Canada. So it's really it's not about the result, but in the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably, as a club, it's probably unique that nobody really cares about the result. Obviously, we do want to win, but and we enjoy winning, of course. But it's not the be all and end all, and there's probably not many clubs like that. And it's something that is really good about Accrington Stanley.
Yeah, you did say too, and I've noticed, and I've talked to Phil about this, is about the top teams. We seem to do play well, and sometimes we sort of seem to fall off a little bit against the lower teams. But after we got Saturday's match at home to Wimbledon, and hopefully we can get a result there. I think the next match might be a tricky one. What do you think, Keith? We're away up to Blackpool. That one, you get past that one, and I think there's some good possibilities there.
Yeah, Blackpool are doing really well recently, aren't they? They're in the playoff places now, aren't they? And yeah. I mean that's going to be difficult. But I remember last season we went to Blackpool and we beat them. So fingers crossed.
Well, and John said, and I agree, is they don't fear anybody. And I think Stanley are getting more respect around the league, but I mean they always seem to be a preseason favorite for relegation. But I think that's only outside. I don't think every Stanley fans feel that way when you go into a season. I mean, yes, you want to stay in the league, but John puts a team together. Generally, you can figure it's not going to get relegated.
Yeah, well, that's his 3 seasons in League One now. So we're getting to the time where we are established as a League One club now. So yeah, we should be looking to the top half. It's definitely achievable. I mean, the manager said it himself, hasn't he? He thinks there's one more promotion in him. So
yeah,
let's just enjoy the ride.
How big of an impact on the team and where they are today in League One would go to Andy Holt?
I think Andy Holt, it's quite hard. He's the top of the tree, really, isn't he? I think, yeah, everything should be him because he saved the club from probably going under again. So everything from the time he's come in has been progression, and it's all down to Andy Holt. Without Andy Holt, we probably wouldn't be here today talking to each other.
Yeah.
So yeah, Andy Holt, he's massive.
Well, and I think he said, "Why would I get rid of John Coleman? He knows more about football than I ever would." So, I mean, he looks at things in a common sense way, doesn't he? And especially what he's doing with the renovations and that. It's not over the top. It's not building an Old Trafford. He's building a small, intimate stadium that fits the club. Yeah,
I mean, everything he does is common sense, and it's probably what's lacking in football owners. He could spend money on players, but it's the gamble that he doesn't want to take. And to be honest, as fans, I don't think we really want to take that gamble either. We don't want to gamble our football club for a shot at glory. It's really no. It's the common sense approach that he's taken, and we're all happy to follow it, aren't we?
Yeah, and I think one of the things that he did that I sometimes gets a bit overlooked is signing players to longer contracts, and so John Coleman doesn't have to rebuild every season.
I think when I started watching Accrington Stanley, our playing side changed every 6 months because of loan players. You would get a player on a 6-month loan, and come January, our team would change again for the second half of this. And now we've got players on like 2 and 3 year contracts. It can only bring stability. And I'm actually quite intrigued how we do next season, because you'll probably find that it'll be the same players, and they're another year older and wiser. So there's a chance that next season could actually be even better than this season.
Well, I think Joe Pritchard is an example of that, isn't he, Keith? Because the season he was having this season, was really a progression from last season. So, and there's no reason we can't see that from him, Butcher, Burgess, and the like.
Yeah, and Dion Charles as well. Dion Charles has been absolutely brilliant this season compared to what he's won so much in the last 6 months even.
That's something that we see with just about every player. That speaks to John Coleman again. It just seems like every player that plays multiple years for Stanley, they get better. And I think that's something that we saw with Jordan Clark. That's something that we saw with Callum Johnson. I mean, and that's why those guys have moved up to the championship or moved on to big contracts with big clubs. And but like you said, coming back to, I think that what you guys have been talking about is really the core of Accrington Stanley, and why all of us, whether we're from Canada or Phoenix or Scotland or Accrington, we're all on the same page because of that common sense approach, and we believe in John Coleman, and we believe in Andy Holt and what they're building, and we're Accrington Stanley, and we don't get too high up after a win, and we don't get too far down after a loss, and it's just become a cliche, but that's why you can lose 7-0 and then come back and get 4 points in 2 matches. Is at the end of the day, that 7-0 is just one loss, and you don't get too far down after.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when you get beat like that, it's how you bounce back, and you just know that when we're down, we're never down for too long, and we're back already, and it's all good, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think the performances are going to get better, actually, because I think getting that win, and I don't think that they were at their best, but I think we'll see in the month of April. I think we'll see them getting back to the form that we're in before. So I'm looking forward to the next few matches, and hopefully we get into the playoffs. If not, then we know we're going to have a solid team in League One next year, and I'm for one hoping that we'll the fans will be back in some shape or form, because I've got my tickets booked for my flight, so I don't want to have to cancel it again, and. I just want to say, when I'm over there, Keith, I'll come and look for you, and we'll share a story over a lager or something, and because it'd be a pleasure to meet you and see you at the WEM Stadium.
No, that's a definite, and we'll have a new sports bar to go into as well.
Yeah, I think it's been for me, and I'll let Phil jump in, but it's been a real pleasure chatting with you, and getting to know you better, and your story, and finding Stanley, and I think that we're going to resonate with a lot of people, and hopefully will inspire other people to follow the club. So thank you for your time, Keith, and we thank you for joining us, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. It's been great talking to you, and like you say, we'll meet up when we can get back to watching football games again.
Yep.
Absolutely, and I'm looking forward to being able to someday make my first journey over to WAM Stadium, and I will definitely buy you a lager when I get there, and look forward to watching some football, and hopefully at some point maybe all 3 of us, and of course Darren Woodhead, can all raise a lager or an Accy ale together.
Accy ale,
yes. And celebrate an Accrington win. And Keith, like Tony said, we really appreciate you joining us today. And it's like I said that to Tony the other day, is that actually being from Accrington, Tony is a bit of an outlier, but it's just as time gone on, I'm finding more and more folks like myself or like you that necessarily don't have a tie to Accrington. We're not from there or anything like that, but it's kind of like we tried out the big teams and had a passion for football, and then it was just something about Accrington Stanley that resonated with us, and whether it's the name or the atmosphere or the underdog story, or I think it's just a little bit of all of it at the end of the day. But I think that that Accrington Stanley is a club that it would really appeal to a lot of people out there. It's just a matter of getting the word out, and that's what we're really trying to do here with the show in general, is get the word out that hey, there's a really great club in Accrington, and we're chomping at the bit to have you support them with us.
Yeah, I mean, if there's anybody in Scotland that's listening to this and they want to go to a game, I'm more than welcome to meet them, and we can go together. And I can guarantee, once you go to the Wham Stadium once, you want to go back again. That kind of place.
That sounds great. Well done.
Well, Keith, thank you again for joining us, and we always like to finish up our show with an on Stanley on. So if everybody's ready, I'm going to count to 3. 1, 2, 3. On Stanley on.
Cheers, Keith.
Cheers.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers,
Have
man.
a great one.